Welcome back to the Organized Chaos devlog. In today's episode, we're going to be showcasing the social combat mechanics I call the Battle of Words in action. In the last episode, we went over the specific mechanics, and today we're going to showcase them with one Battle of Words. A one-on-one battle of words between a merchant and a customer, haggling over the price of a sword. This should show a good range of tactics and general styles of Battle of Words play. I'm also going to do a brief demo on using the Battle of Words during combat as well. First off will be our two characters bartering over the cost of a sword in the shop. The buyer will be Cormac, a sort of roguish barbarian Conan type with a long history and a great reputation. The merchant will be Zarek, very much your standard greedy merchant with a penchant for ripping people off type. The bulk of Cormac's stats are focused around combat stats, not shown here, giving him a slight disadvantage over Zarek, whose stats are focused on the Battle of Words. However, Cormac isn't completely hopeless, as Cormac has a much higher will score, as well as skill-wise, Cormac's thuggery is on equal terms with Zarek's haggling. Another benefit to the Battle of Words system is that unlike travel and combat, it can be done entirely through the theater of the mind. So if you're not a fan of grids, a social-focused campaign will be right up your alley. There will also be some other options for travel, but we'll talk about that in the travel video. So our scene starts with Cormac walking into Zarek's back alley shop. His old sword shattered on his last adventure, and a friend told him this was the place to get a new one fast. After looking around for a while, Cormac decides on a saber with an electricity enchantment. In its sheath, he brings the blade to the counter and asks how much it's worth. Zarek answers 100 gold, and thus the Battle of Words starts, as Cormac wants to haggle the price. The rules for this Battle of Words are thus. Assuming turn order modification is the domain of perks instead of a roll, the turn limit for this Battle of Words will be 5, or until one opponent has completely drained the charisma score of the other, whichever comes first. As well as this being a one-on-one versus affair between Cormac and Zarek. If Cormac wins, he'll be able to buy the sword for 50 gold. If Zarek wins, then the price stays at 100 gold. Cormac, being both the person to instigate this whole scenario, and being the one with the higher reflexes attribute, gets to go first. For his first turn, Cormac is going to attempt to make 4 effects, costing him a total of 4 social points, bringing his total down to 6. Each of those 4 effects are going to be attempts at inflicting the fear status effect on Zarek. Using his thuggery skill, Cormac rolls 5 dice against Zarek's will of 1. For the first roll, Cormac rolls 2 successes, thus beating Zarek's will score and inflicting him with 1 stack of fear. For the second roll, Cormac only rolls 1 success, and thus Zarek, as the defender, wins, meaning he still only has 1 stack of fear. And again, for his third roll, Cormac only rolls 1 success, thus Zarek still only has 1 stack of fear. And for the fourth and final roll, Cormac rolls a 2, thus giving Zarek a total of 2 stacks of fear on his first turn. Therefore, Zarek will be plagued by the fear status effect for 2 turns, meaning all intimidation attacks do double damage, and all his attempted effects will cost 1 additional point of social. What Cormac says to achieve this effect goes like this. "Listen here, you mangy dog of a merchant. I could buy a galley for that price. Best you sell me this blade for a reasonable amount, so as to spare me the effort of cleaving your head with it." Thus Zarek starts his turn with 2 stacks of fear, as this humble back alley merchant just got a threat from a great big barbarian about how his head is going to be cleaved off. Zarek has a few options here. He can burn the social points to attempt to calm himself down and remove each stack of fear. He can, with his much higher social pool, just attempt to brute force Cormac's charisma pool down to 0 as quickly as possible. He can do both, or he can try and pace himself, among other things. For the sake of showing everything off, let's say Zarek is going to take a mixed approach. For his turn, he'll make 3 effects, which will cost him 3 social, because of the fear effect bringing his pool down to 17 from 20. The first being a roll to remove 1 stack of fear, and the other 2 to inflict damage against Cormac. To remove a stack of fear, as the mechanic works for now, it's definitely up for debate. Zarek will roll his will against Cormac's will. If Zarek wins, then 1 stack of fear is removed, and if Cormac wins, that 1 stack stays. Zarek rolls 1 die and rolls 1 success. Cormac rolls 2 dice and likewise gets 1 success. With it being a tie, Cormac defends the imposition of his will on Zarek, and therefore the stack of fear stays. Now onto the 2 attacks. For each attack, Zarek will induce barter damage via his haggling skill. Rolling 5 dice, Zarek gets 3 successes and therefore does 3 points of damage, bringing Cormac's charisma down from 15 to 12. On the second roll, Zarek gets 2 successes, therefore bringing Cormac's charisma down from 12 to 10 before ending his turn. How this actually plays out is essentially what Zarek will meekly say is, "Killing me will send a legion of guards on your trail," to no real effect as he tries to calm himself down, as Cormac just keeps mad-dogging him. Surely an experienced adventurer such as yourself must understand that magic weapons such as that are a rarity worth every piece of gold. A weapon I myself had to pay no small fortune to obtain. With each party having taken their turn, that ends the first round of potentially 5. Now we go back to Cormac for his response, who, after having a third of his charisma drained in 1 round, decides he needs to bum rush and press his chances now while he still has an advantage. So once again, he's going to go for 4 effects that will cost him 4 social, bringing his pool down from 6 to 2. Each one of those effects are going to be intimidation attacks via his thuggery skill. For the first roll, he gets 3 successes, and because Zarek has 1 stack of fear, that does 6 damage, bringing Zarek's charisma down from 30 to 24. Rolling again for the second attack, Cormac rolls another 3 successes, therefore doing another 6 damage to Zarek, bringing his charisma down from 24 to 18. For the third attack, Cormac rolls 2 successes and does 4 damage, reducing Zarek's charisma to 14. And for the fourth and final attack, Cormac managed to not roll a single success, therefore doing no damage. The argument essentially plays out thusly. You think I give a damn about the guards? This sword could take their heads as easily as yours, and with the gold I saved I could buy a ship and crew and be back on the water before nightfall. 50 gold or your blood, which is worth more to you. Zarek is now somewhat recoiling. Still in fear, he has a few choices. He could make like Cormac and attempt to bum rush with his remaining social points. After all, over half his charisma points have been depleted in 1 round. However, Zarek also knows a brute like Cormac doesn't have the social points to make an attack like that again. If he burns all of his points and doesn't roll well, then he'll be a sitting duck, with Cormac using his last points to induce fear again and chip away his remaining charisma points. Zarek knows he has the social advantage, so he's going to go on the offensive, but it'll be a conservative offensive in which he paces himself. Being as this is the last turn he'll be affected by the fear status effect, Zarek opts not to burn social points by attempting to remove it. Instead, Zarek is going to go for 4 effects, which will cost him 5 social, bringing his pool down from 17 to 12. The first 2 effects will be him attempting to heal the damage to his charisma that Cormac wrought last turn, and the other 2 to inflict damage on Cormac himself. Using his haggling skill, he will roll 5 dice. For the first roll, he gets 2 successes and therefore heals 2 damage, bringing his charisma pool up from 14 to 16. And likewise, on his second roll, he will get 2 successes, bringing his charisma up from 16 to 18. Now rolling again to attack Cormac, Zarek rolls 3 successes, and brings Cormac's charisma down from 10 to 7, and once again rolling 3 successes, Zarek brings Cormac's charisma down from 7 to 4, with the discussion essentially going like this. You could. I have no doubt about that. In fact, I have no doubt you have done so to many others before. Though, consider a moment what that would cost. Surely you'll need magic artifacts again in the future, and few are as skilled as procuring them as myself. Rather than thinking of the gold saved, think of the gold spent as an investment into future dealings on all sorts of magic artifacts. But for that to happen, I need to make sure I make enough money off of each of my wares to keep myself both afloat and in good supply of a rather difficult-to-come-by stock. That ends the second round of this 5-round battle of words, thus bringing us into round 3. Whether or not you agree that the man makes a good point, he's already recovered beyond half his total charisma, even if just barely. all the while bringing Cormac down to just a little under a third of his total charisma. Cormac realizes he's going to have to be bold if he wants to get a good deal on that sword and win the Battle of Words. So this turn, Cormac is going to burn the last of his social points to make 3 effects, costing 2 points, bringing his social pool down to 0. The first effect will be to inflict the fear status effect on Zarek, with the other 2 both being to deal damage. Rolling 5 dice, once again, Cormac rolls 4 successes, once again inflicts fear on Zarek. Now rolling to inflict intimidation damage, Cormac rolls 2 successes and deals 4 damage, bringing Zarek back down to 14 charisma. Cormac then rolls 3 successes to deal 6 damage, bringing his charisma down to 8. Cormac's response being, "To hell with your investment. I'm a rogue and a pirate, not some banker. There are artifact mongers like you all across the sea. I could kill every single one I met and still never be rid of you lot. We can do this the easy way or the painful way, miser. Make your choice." Zarek is on the ropes, but Cormac even more so. Zarek knows Cormac's social battery is spent. Now is not the time to play it safe. All Cormac needs is a couple good rolls, and Zarek is finished. He has to finish this now. Zarek will go for 5 effects this turn, costing him 8 social points, bringing his total down from 12 to 4. Each effect is going to be a bartering damage attack on Cormac. This ends now. On the first roll, Zarek rolls 3 successes, bringing Cormac's charisma down from 4 to 1. On the second roll, Zarek rolls 1 success, and brings Cormac's charisma down from 1 to 0, thus ending the Battle of Words, with Zarek the winner, his rebuttal being this. "Now listen here, seafoam trash. I have put up with your idle threats for long enough. You will either pay me the full price of 100 gold or leave my store. Strike me down and you'll guarantee yourself a career of mediocrity as a pirate. If you ever want to strike it big as a true terror of the seas, your best option will be my carefully procured arcane goods. You can make your own damn choice." And now Cormac has a few options before him. He can pay the 100 gold for the sword like Zarek demands. He can make good on his threats and just kill Zarek with the blade in combat. He can just walk away, or because he got Zarek well past half health in the Battle of Words, he can give Zarek a day to calm down before trying to barter again for a higher price than his current offer. Or whatever else the player wants, really, even with Zarek's advantage of being an NPC actually made for the Battle of Words. Had Cormac either rolled better, gone all in at the start, or possibly even just paced himself better, he could just as well have won the Battle of Words for himself. Now let's say Cormac, instead of coming to haggle, simply grabbed the sword and started swinging from the get-go. Once again, because Cormac has the better reflexes attribute, he goes first. And because this isn't the combat showcase, let's just say for this, on his first swing he rolls badly, and Zarek rolls well, therefore Zarek avoids getting his head cleaved open. Now then, there are 2 different options for Zarek here if he wishes to speak mid-combat. Either run around trying to talk to Cormac as he's swinging for him, or try to end the combat so as to initiate a proper Battle of Words. Throwing out Battle of Words techniques mid-combat is easy enough. Your standard ruling without having any perks or skills is that 1 Battle of Words effect is worth 1 action turn in combat. This is usually done to try and induce a status effect like anger on an opponent mid-battle. Though if built for, you could say make additional effects per action turn and make a Battle of Words effect on your reaction turn as well. So as an example now, we're on Zarek's turn in the combat. He is going to bluff and lie with his haggling skill as a means of trying to put the fear status effect on Cormac, saying something along the lines of, "If you don't stop, I have 100 mercenaries on my payroll, and I'll have them take your head." Zarek then rolls his haggling skill, using his monetary knowledge to try and convince Cormac that he isn't a worthwhile target. Rolling 5 dice, he gets 2 successes, and fails to overcome Cormac's will of 20, which is always treated as 2 successes, therefore doesn't do anything. Certain abilities, however, let you attempt to pull someone into a Battle of Words and break combat. Their allies, nor your party members, are affected by this, though, meaning his buddy can still run up to you and shank you in the side as you're having a heart-to-heart with his boss. So hopefully your buddy has either them occupied or is guarding your back while you talk. This can be done for a couple reasons. The first is to genuinely find a peaceful solution to the violence. The second being to essentially filibuster and waste your opponent's time so as to pull them out of combat temporarily. Using one of these abilities takes stamina like any other combat ability. However, you roll a relevant skill, such as Zarek's haggling, against their will attribute to attempt to pull them into a battle of words. If you are in a full battle of words in combat, then it works differently than just trying to use a battle of words effect mid-combat. Your action turns in combat are instead replaced entirely by your battle of words turns, with you and your opponent just having no movement or reaction turns, with the trade-off being that you can use as many battle of words effect per turn as you want. However, if you or your opponent are hit in combat, the battle of words ends immediately. Your opponent can also force you to make another roll against their will as an effect. If your roll doesn't beat their will, they can end the battle of words immediately. Now, you can absolutely still talk your way out of a situation if you don't have one of these abilities. You're just restricted to the combat rules for battle of words effects, meaning it'll probably take a lot longer. For an example, let's make up an ability for Zarek's haggling skill. We'll call it Money Talks. Used on an action turn, if you hold up something considered valuable to your opponent, you can attempt to force them into a battle of words mid-combat. So let's say Zarek on his action turn holds up some sort of magical amulet that gets Cormac's attention. Zarek rolls his haggling skill and gets 3 successes, therefore beating Cormac's will of 20. Because it's just the two of them, combat ends immediately and the new battle of words begins, that I'll just say for the sake of time ends exactly the same as it did before. And that was the Battle of Words showcase. Sorry it was kind of short and came late, but for the moment I'm switching to an every other week release schedule, because I'm currently writing for a competition on Honeyfeed, and an every other week release schedule was just the best compromise I could think of. Since I'm talking about that, I may as well mention the stories I have on there already. First of all are the 2 I'm currently working on, the first of which being my competition entry, Stormchild of Stone and Bone, which is a historical fantasy story set in the Japanese Paleolithic, about a Homo floresiensis getting blown off his island Homo Flores before ocean currents carry him to the shores of then peninsular Japan, where he has to face numerous fantastic threats such as other hominid species, along with various primordial wild gods of the land and their magic powers. The second story being Blood and Rice, that you can also find on alternatehistory.com, which is about an alternate East Asia in which the Zhou failed to overthrow the Shang dynasty, radically changing the region's history on a fundamental level, with localized blood sacrifice and warmongering zealotry replacing the mandate of heaven and the imperial centralized bureaucracy of the ancient China we know. Finally, there's 2 finished series, Cultivation of Freedom, which is an urban fantasy travelogue story inspired by the writings of Ando Shoki, in which a young man from an isolated agrarian anarchist paradise must escort a foreign agent attempting to stir trouble in his homeland back to their homeland across the world, along the way experiencing what is essentially the real world of the setting as they both ramble on. Then there's Kubigari no Gogo / Headhunting Afternoon, which I want to state first and foremost ended up being a mess of a story, in spite of what I think is a great concept. Essentially, it's an isekai, bear with me I know, about a yakuza that dies in a job gone wrong and is reincarnated as an infant to a tribe of headhunters in a fantasy shonen world where the main power source comes directly through using your enemy's sealed away soul trapped in their own severed head. Essentially, it's a headhunting sort of anti-shonen. Like I said, the story is a mess, but I like to think the world building and the concept are there. It's a story I'd love to rewrite someday, and maybe even include the setting as an organized chaos campaign setting. The next episode is another world building fundamentals, this one about creating fictional martial arts for your settings. The next organized chaos devlog will be about the travel system, and that's the system I'm most excited to tell everyone about, because while all the systems here have a lot of original blood, the travel system has original bone marrow, if you catch my drift. I racked my brain for months coming up with it, and it's the system I'm the most proud of personally. Until then, let me know what you think of everything here down below.